Welcome to D18-Foto. My name is Dennis18. Today we're going to do something a little bit different than we do usually. Today we're going to do a book review. I brought 3 photo books with me I would like to share with you guys, and I hope you enjoy them. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this. Alright, book number 1. It's called Black Sky, Vanishing, Iceland. It's a very small little book about the size of a CD case, a little bigger but not much. It's a very nice little package, and basically it's a collaboration of a poet and a photographer. The photographer's name is NÖKKVI ELÍASSON and the poet's name is AÐALSTEINN SIGURÐSSON. I hope I'm really pronouncing these names right, because it would be a really shame if I did butcher those names, because these guys really did a good job. It's a wonderful collection of black and white images of abandoned houses and farms on Iceland, all done in black and white, most of them on film, some of them digitally. And with a lot of pictures, you have side by side, you got poems by Sigurðsson, and these poems capture the same mood as the pictures. They are not really connected to each other always. Sometimes you have a feeling that there is a connection. Sometimes they just pick up the same spirit of the picture. They're really, really nice pairing of words and photographs. And yeah, before I talk too much about it, let's take a look inside. I'll put it over my desk, and then we can look inside and see what I mean when I say this is a really good book. Black Sky, Vanishing, Iceland. When you open up the book, you see sometimes the pictures are spread full bleed over both pages, and sometimes you actually have a juxtaposition of one picture and a poem side by side, and there's sometimes a connection which is loose, sometimes it's very tight, and they both pick up the same idea and the same concept and the same feeling, same kind of emotion. This picture I turned to here is definitely done digitally, and it's one of the things which I actually do not like about the book, because I just love the pictures, even the digital ones, although you basically know that I'm a huge fan of film photography, but still I love the picture by itself, but in combination with pictures which are done on film, which is like this one, the camera won't pick that up, but you see the film grain, especially in the clouds and the sky, where in the gray tones you really see the film grain, and that contributes much more to the dark mood of these dramatic skies than a digital photo does. It's much too smooth for my taste, but that's just me. The picture itself is wonderful, but still I just love the grittiness of the film grain. Well, this is just a matter of taste, I guess. But one of the really cool things about this book really is the juxtaposition of short poems and the photograph, which really are nicely linked together. And yeah, this is one of the pictures I wanted to show you guys. It's wonderful. You can see these walls and the open windows, well, places where windows and doors used to be, and you can see the light falling through them, and it's really dark and gloomy. And over here you have these nice flowers, and everything is there's a huge difference between the left side of the picture and the right side. It's wonderfully done, and very nice skies. The clouds are streaking across the skies, and really nice composition. And just for a place which could be really desolate and really gloomy, still it's really beautiful, especially the contrast between the flowers and the blacks of that crumbling wall, and the light coming through the windows is really, really nice. Let's see what else we got. A lot of pictures were actually done from slightly below, which kind of with a wide angle lens, which gives the buildings a strange look, because you kind of like you're creeping up towards the house, and you kind of it's like you're not quite sure if somebody still living in there, and maybe the place is haunted, so you're kind of keeping low and crawling up to the house and not quite sure what's going on in there. At least that's my interpretation, but that's really something which a lot of these pictures have, the low angle with wide angle lens. Really, really nice. And here you have one of the other things which this book shows a lot of is the use of negative space. Really a lot of empty space, emptiness, which sets apart the element which you're supposed to focus on, which is the house and this little tree in the foreground. And then back here, I don't know, I'm not quite sure if that's water or if it's snow, maybe. I think this should be water, and back here you have got clouds. So it's basically a huge white canvas with this house and the tree basically painted on the front, and this negative space back here, which gives you the main element, room to breathe, which is really, really interesting. And the idea of using empty skies and low contrast backgrounds works really wonderfully to set these places apart, which you are supposed to look at. You're not supposed to think about what's going on back here, but actually focus on the buildings in front. The cool thing about this book, when I've actually opened it up and I found this place, I'm pretty sure that I've actually been to this place back in 1989 when I was on Iceland for the first time. And we basically set up our camper right in front of these abandoned buildings. And I was just a kid back then, so we started playing in this house and dug around, and we had the feeling that people had just left a few days ago, because there were things still sitting on tables. It was really spooky, really interesting. There was, definitely, it looked like this, so you definitely knew it was abandoned, but still a lot of the stuff from the daily lives of the people who lived there was still in those houses. Really, really cool. And this is one of my favorite pictures in here. It's a very simple picture, but you have this great composition here. You have the stark triangle here set to the black sky with the puffs of white clouds on there. But you have rule of thirds going on, and you have the big black canvas with a white triangle on it. It's almost an abstract, really cool picture. And yeah, before I talk too much about this thing, pick it up and look at it yourself. Let's get on to the next book, which is Wim Wenders. Right, book number 2, Wim Wenders, Places Strange and Quiet. It's a wonderful book, and it's absolutely stunning how this thing is made. This picture actually is printed on a wraparound, so the book itself is just plain, very nice cardboard, and the picture is the wraparound panorama, which you can take off, and it's really nice. It's a really well done book, and inside you've got a lot of pictures by Wim Wenders. Well, it's hard to actually say what he is. I was tempted to say the filmmaker, but Wim is much more than that. He's a great photographer. He's a painter. Actually, that's how he started, and he's a wonderful photographer. And I'm a huge fan. And if you just see how these pictures in here just fold out sometimes it's just a few words on one side and a picture on the other. These are all great color pictures done by Wim. And yeah, let's put it on a table and flip through it and see what we can find and discover in this book, Places Strange and Quiet. Okay, let's look at Wim Wenders' Places Strange and Quiet. Let's take off the wrapper before we damage it when we flip through the book. Let's put it aside. And let's see, the first picture I would like to show you is this one, which is really cool because it shows so much about Wim Wenders. He was born in Düsseldorf and grew up right after World War II, and his city was totally flattened and almost totally destroyed. There was rubble and burnout buildings and empty chimneys, and there was really nothing left of that city to speak of. And as a child, he said, well, he told in an interview that he actually thought that this is how the world looks like. That's normal, have rubble and debris and everything. That's how the world actually looks like. And the first idea he got that actually the world could look different and could be different was when he looked at paintings. And at least that's how he tells the story. He first got the idea of maybe there's something more to the world than just what's around him. And he wanted to later become an artist himself. And he actually started out as a painter. And the reason why I'm showing you this picture here, when I'm talking about him being a painter, is that it looks quite stunningly close to the idea, or to the painting done by the American painter or artist Edward Hopper. This is really something which I think is quite astounding, that the whole composition, the idea of this window here, this cafe or diner or whatever it is, and this one here, and the building back here and here as well, it's so close to a Hopper painting the photograph he took here. It's really quite striking. And actually, as I said, he started as a painter, and then he moved on to take photographs and shoot films. And his films are really interesting, especially his documentary work. That's what most people think about when they think about Wim Wenders. But also his fictional movies are really, really cool. My favorite is Palermo Shooting, which is about a photographer who basically lives a very fast life, is a fashion photographer, lives like a high-octane life. He photoshops everything to death. He shoots models and is really almost brought to the edge of his strength by this high tempo he has to live every day, that he kind of almost, well, he actually, he turns crazy almost, and then he finds a way out of this craziness, out of that speeded up life, and starts, first of all, one of the things he does, he starts shooting with an analog camera, which is not actually talked much about, but the way he starts out in the movie is that he shoots everything on digital. Everything has to be high-tech and perfect and quick, and you can do all the Photoshop things. And then he moves over and starts to slow down, goes to Palermo, and comes into the thought process of how about, what am I doing here? What about death? How much time do I have left? What do I want to do with my life? And he meets this girl who's restoring paintings in an old cathedral. So all these things happen which slow him down, and as he does that, he takes pictures with a film camera. And I think that's a very nice little thing which a photographer like Wim Wenders was able to tell, because he also uses film photography and knows how this slower pace takes you much deeper into images. And the reason why I'm telling you all this is because all these pictures in here are really slow paced. At least that's how I see them. There's not much going on. They really slow you down, make you flip through the pages at a different speed than you would normally flip through a book like this. It's not, oh, nice picture, nice picture, nice picture. No, you start to look at these pictures and really stay there. And most of the pictures are without people, and almost no movement in them at all, and they almost have a painterly quality to them. They're like landscapes. This is basically the flip side of this image. This is taken from the one direction, and then when you turn the pages over, you see the same Ferris wheel just from the other side, and you see that actually there's a totally different landscape here, but it's all without people. It's very, it's not sad, but there's certain melancholy and a certain slowness, which is really fascinating, and something you find a lot in paintings. And he actually, I think, could best described as his pictures, as photographs, are paintings just done by camera instead of brushes. There are a few poems in here, all in English. And here also you see these objects dropped into a landscape, which is really, there's not much going on here, but these objects make the whole set very interesting and capture your imagination. What are these things? Why are they dropped in the middle of nowhere? What's going on here? And let's see what else we have here. Yeah, this is something which is really interesting, because when you think of Düsseldorf and Wim Wenders, you also think a lot about the the industrial sites which are in that area, and the importance of heavy industry for the whole region, all the jobs which were created there, the way the people lived there or still live there and lived in the past, and how much industry and work actually influenced their lives. And all these places, strange and quiet, are all without people. Even here you have this aerial shot, was on an aerial shot, but he's up on a mountain looking down on this city and the river, and they have these dramatic skies with the sun back here, sitting really low on the horizon, and then you have these dark clouds coming in. And when you look at it, it looks almost like a painting. The tones are so flat that it's not, at first sight, it's more a painterly quality than it is a photograph. Really cool. And when you look at something like this, it's almost abstract, and it takes you a while to understand what's going on. You've got this little boat here, which the first you don't see, but after a while you pick up on these little details. But it's almost like a hazy, there's a lot of nothingness going on, but still when you look closer you find these little things, but still it's almost like a painting, and very quiet, and of course strange, as he says in the title of the book. And yeah, there's so much to discover when you pick up this book, but maybe it's something you should find out for yourself. But Wim Wenders' Places Strange and Quiet, really something interesting. Right, book number 3. It's the heaviest of the lot. It's the Polaroid Book selections from the Polaroid collection of photography made by Taschen. It's a really heavy, nicely bound book, absolutely packed with wonderful images done on Polaroid material. Of course, you have the white frames of the integral films, which everybody thinks about when they hear the word Polaroid. That's what you normally think about. But there's much more here. You just flipping through these images, you start to remember how many different kinds of film formats there were, which normally you don't think about. But there's peel apart, there's type 55, there's 8x10s, there's so many different kinds of Polaroid formats in this book. It's absolutely amazing, and all these artists who contributed to this Polaroid collection, their work was so different. Their portraits, their still lifes, their abstract works in here. There's documentary photography, there's Americana, there's the European pictures in here, black and white color. Some are they just look like paintings, some look like very stark images done with a flash. There's some manipulation going on here. It's absolutely stunning what this book encompasses. So many cool things in here. And before I gush too much about it, let's take a look inside, and let's see if you guys actually agree with me that this is probably the best Polaroid book you can find, and it's definitely one of the heaviest. Book number 3, the Polaroid Book. Polaroid as a company also spent a lot of effort, not just to producing film and to selling it, but they kept very close connections with artists who used their material and built up a huge collection over the years. A lot of artists really loved working with all different kinds of formats Polaroid offered. The book starts out with a little bit history about Polaroid and Edwin Land, the man who invented the whole idea of instant photography, and about the company of Polaroid. That's a little bit in the beginning, and at the end you actually have a collection of different Polaroid land cameras, which start with a Polaroid 80 from 1954 to 1957, and at the end you come to the conclusion of the land cameras with the SX70 models, these folding SLRs. And everything after that had nothing to do with Edwin Land. That was just the name Polaroid, and he actually left the company when they started doing all these plastic 80s box camera things, which are quite fun, but have really nothing to do with the artist cameras of Edwin Land's time. We start with this wonderful picture here, which was taken by Peter Jones. It's as real. It looks like a painting. It's amazing how the tone, the colors and the softness of the focus looks like it has been done, but with a brush on canvas. It's amazing. And you have this young, I think it's a boy or young woman with these seagulls up here. It's very interesting and very, yeah, it looks, to me it looks like a 70s cover of Enid Blyton books, but that's just me. And then here we have these Americana signs here. Here you got two more pictures which really look like paintings. This definitely looks like something painted on canvas and not taken with the camera. It's amazing what the material could do. And let's see, this is a picture which looks like most pictures you could remember. I think it's a Spectra film with different format, done by Mary Ellen Mark. That's what she did a lot with twins and two people standing side by side. There's a lot of stuff Mary Ellen Mark did there, and this is one from her, done by her. And the colors and the way it looks, it's almost like a family snapshot, but it's definitely posed, and these two were picked out to stand side by side, and the way they were dressed and play off each other, really interesting. But it's totally different than the more painterly pictures we saw earlier in the book. And then you have these abstracts here, which are just shapes and colors taken and then set side by side in this big collage, which is something a lot of Polaroid artists started playing around with, having these abstracts and then using them to put them next to each other, like basically like a mosaic. Very interesting. Here is one of the most prominent artists. When you talk about Polaroid, you have to talk about Andy Warhol. Is really one of those people who really embraced the medium of Polaroid, the instant photography idea. And this portrait which he has taken here is actually really clever play on one of the first Polaroids that were taken. Actually, when Edwin Land first presented the cameras, or the idea of instant photography to the world, this is one of the pictures. That's the artist or the inventor with his camera showing himself with a photograph and of himself. And back here you have Andy Warhol doing the same. And there's also, before this picture was taken, there was one with the very first Polaroid camera, which also shows him showing himself taken on this new material, standing in front of a camera, which the photograph was taken with. It's amazing how this idea of myself with a camera on a Polaroid with a camera kind of repeats itself all over every few years, basically every decade, whatever. This thing definitely has something to do with each other. They knew about each other, and they really, this is a tongue-in-cheek, I think, homage to Edwin Land. We have Salvador Dali on a totally different kind of format. You see, this is not the usual integral film which you think about when you think about Polaroid. And these absolutely amazing artist with his, he's moving himself, he's not quite sharp, and all these pictures, these figures around him moving around, this is really long exposure. And it's amazing. This Salvador Dali couldn't have been portrayed much more fittingly than it was done here. Then you have still lifes, which make you pause in black and white. And you see all the light coming through. I think it's like a hat or something where the light falls through and paints these structures, these dots onto the objects, which I said, and this wonderful combination with these two round objects here and these two bottles, really interesting. And the idea of shadows and symmetry here and triangles, and absolutely stunning still life. And then you have absolutely abstract works with it's more like a collection of light and color instead of a real photograph. This is probably takes you back to 9.5 weeks Kim Basinger dancing. And yeah, this is also one of my favorite pictures here, which is almost, yeah, it's surreal. You have this form here on this shell, which is repeated itself up here in the clouds. This turned swirl up here is the same swirl which is down here, and then you have the white on black and the white on black, which is a really amazing photograph. Really cool. And as you can, I just flip through it. They have another Andy Warhol picture back here, which is actually a self-portrait. Really cool. And there's so many pictures in here which are absolutely amazing, and all these pictures have nothing to do with the crappy snapshot aesthetic which you think about when you think about Polaroid, basically. As I said, back here you have all kinds of interesting bits of information about the different kinds of Polaroid cameras, and then you have the artist's index back here, which you can just look through and see who was who and who took which picture and when was it put into the collection of the Polaroid company. Wonderful book, and it's actually weighs a ton, but it's really worth picking up, and it's just about 10 euros on Amazon, so it's really nice to get it. I got it even cheaper at a used bookstore. Really cool. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this little big book review session we did here, and if you did, please like and subscribe my channel. Stay with me at D18-Foto on Facebook, and of course find my webpage at www.d18-foto.com. Don't forget to spell photo with an F. And yeah, see you later, and leave me some comments. Bye bye. See you.